If you're not comfortable with your face being part of the recording, you're welcome to keep your video turned off. I think you all look wonderful. But that gives us the ability to come back to it after. If there's something you don't quite remember how to do, you'll have access to a recording of the training. And then those couple of tips that I want to show you. So first things is the chat. So if you have questions while we're going through, down at the bottom of your screen, top if you're on a Mac, you have this button with a little speech bubble. If you click on it, it'll open up a chat box that you can type in and send messages. Just to check that that is working, if everyone could just send a hi, your name, hello, anything you want to type in there really quickly, just to see that the chat is working. Great, I can see some smiley faces, some hi rooms. Dave is here. Cool. So this is the window you want to return to if you want to interject any questions while we're going through, no worries at all. And Kate will be reading those for me. Awesome. What we're looking at right now is the screen share. I'm sharing my screen with you. And Zoom automatically makes that full screen and picks a size that it thinks is best. But if you don't like the way that Zoom sort of set that up for you, you can change it. Up at the top, you have a button that's called View Options. And if you want to exit the full screen and have control of the size of the window, you can do that. For me, I'm usually fine with the way that Zoom does things automatically, but you do have the option to move it around if you want to. So again, that's up at the top if you want to play with it. And then the other thing I want to show you right away is the options for what it looks like when we're all talking together. So you can't see this right now because we're in screen share. In a second, I'll close the screen share and go back to everybody's faces so that you can see the difference. But what it is by default is speaker view, and that means that the person who's talking takes up the screen and everybody else is just kind of small up at the top. If you want to see everybody's faces in more of that Brady Bunch style, you'll click on gallery view in the top right corner to change what that looks like. So I'll go ahead and close that so that you can find that button, flip back and forth, decide what works for you. I personally like to see everybody's faces even if the videos get small. Makes it easier for me to find what's going on. But if you'd prefer to see a large view of just the person who's talking, absolutely, you can also pick that one. Cool. So to get started with, we're going to do another feature of Zoom that we'll talk more about next week. You don't have to worry about how to set this up yet. But there's something we can do called breakout rooms, where I can send you off in a smaller group to talk to just a few people. And we're going to do that to do introductions. So I was hoping that we could take just a couple of minutes to, using that chat feature again to test it out, send what you heard from your groups or what you shared from your groups we're looking forward to about teaching on Zoom. So if you want to go down to the chat, and if you want to share either what you said or something you heard, what are we looking forward to about Ella on Zoom? Connecting with students, absolutely. Something that I know some people worry about is that, oh, in digital, it's going to feel less like a community, students will be less engaged. I didn't experience that at all. Students were 100% as excited and dedicated to class as they had been in the libraries, and it was awesome to get to talk to them in like a smaller setting on Zoom. Interacting with people they don't live with, absolutely, me too. Yeah, I'm seeing teaching a couple of times. It's been a while. Nice to get back in it, to get to start sharing about English again. Meeting new people. We are going to open it up to an online registration. So we might see some new faces added in with students we have worked with before, which will be super exciting. In learning and expanding skills, it's like a different way of teaching and just communicating with people. So even just that added element of working with Zoom gives something else to kind of dig into that I at least really enjoy. I know it's not for everybody. Yeah, and Zoom. Hopefully, by the end of this, we'll be feeling super comfortable and confident about hosting on Zoom. Awesome. Well, I'm happy to see all of those responses. I hope you had a chance to at least connect with a few fellow volunteers and get some familiar faces, since we won't be meeting all together at the office for kickoff in the usual way. I'm going to go ahead and open back up to my slides and let you know what we're going to be working with today. So we're really just focusing on 4 things for hosting today. We're going to talk about muting and stopping your video and also your students' videos. When you join a meeting, we're going to talk about how you claim the host role and sort of get control of all of Zoom's functions. We're going to talk about the way that you can share that class invite with your students so that they all know when and where and how to jump into class. And then we're going to talk about the participants list. And that's a list of all the people who are in the Zoom meeting, and in my opinion is your most powerful button that gives you a lot of control over how class is working for yourself and for your students. So we'll get started with muting and with your video. Those buttons live in the bottom left of your screen on a normal view. When we're screen sharing, it might move them up to the top or keep them on the bottom. But you can flick those on and off at your leisure whenever you need to. While I'm flicking through and looking at your videos, if I can see people stopping and starting their cameras, so I know those have been found, you can just kind of blink those on and off. Great. And I want to talk a little bit about why we might want to use these buttons during class. Even as the person who's hosting and teaching, there are reasons why sometimes I might want to turn off my sound or turn off my video. So I'm going to go ahead and anytime I ask a question like this in class, I like to put the screen share away actually so that I can see everybody when we talk about answers. So we'll start with muting with the sound. Anyone who wants to either share an experience you've had in a meeting or just a horror story you've heard from somebody else, what is a reason why I might want to mute in the middle of a call? And you may need to unmute yourself to share that answer.
Some background noise you don't want to share with others.
Exactly. What is some background noise that might be happening in my house?
The phone rings.
Absolutely, the phone ringing.
The
What
cat
else?
asks for food.
Cats, kids, dogs, absolutely. Maybe you're just having a sneezing fit and you don't want to blow out their speakers with it. So keeping in mind that you have that power to cut your sound off if you need to, if something is going on behind you. Same kind of thinking, but with video. What's a reason I might completely turn my video off during class?
Well, I would do that if I had to sneeze or cough, something like that, and I wanted to turn away.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to see this face I make when I'm sneezing. What else?
Maybe if you step away for just a second, like you're leaving, but you don't want to make a big deal
Yeah,
of it.
maybe it's like a little bit more confusing if they're looking at an empty chair. It's like, I need to go take a minute, I'll turn it off. Totally. What else?
Maybe if you want to have the students really focusing on themselves or a writing assignment or something like that.
Yeah, you want to totally remove yourself. Say you're talking to your classmates right now. I'm not here. You can handle this assignment that we're working on. Totally. Help shift their focus.
I was in a meeting where a person's tiny little kitten was playing behind them. And it was very distracting, but entertaining.
That might be something that warms the heart on Zoom, but also maybe you need to turn the video off so that we're staying focused. Totally.
If you need a glass of iced coffee.
Yes. A glass of something else, whatever's getting you through. all of these are more of on the positive side. I wish some of my in-class distractions were a cute kitten in the background. But sometimes what's going to come wandering through your screen is a child or a husband who has maybe forgotten that a video call is going on. So I keep my door closed, but not all of us have that option. So let's say a naked baby comes wandering through, the ability to cut my camera off very quickly is an important one for my own privacy. So just keeping in mind you have that control if you need it, and don't hesitate to use it because your students will also be turning things on and off as they need to. So don't feel like you're not allowed to because you're hosting. You have that control over your privacy. Cool, all great ideas.
Lizzie, there was a question in the chat, maybe you're going to get to this, about can we unmute and turn students' videos on?
You cannot unmute or turn on their videos. You do have the power to turn their stuff off, but Zoom doesn't let you force it back on. What you can do is send them a prompt that will ask them to. So you can click on their name and ask them to unmute, and they'll get a little pop-up that says you're trying to do that, and they just click a blue button to say yes. But you can't force it, just in case they turned it off for an important reason. And I will show
Could
you.
you practice that quick? Can you mute us all and then send us the prompt so we can?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will do that now. So all of you now should be muted, and then I can send a prompt that asks all to unmute, and hopefully you should be seeing a little pop-up now giving you the option to do that. Can I just get some thumbs up to say, did that go through or not? Okay, I'm seeing some yeses, but I'm also seeing some head shakes. So here, let me send it to just a couple of my no's. Deb, I just sent one specifically to you. Did you see that time?
Yes.
Okay. Most of the time, the way you'll be using that is with specific students, not with the send to all option. And I'll show you where those buttons are at just a couple of slides away, actually. But it is a very helpful thing, especially if your students don't quite understand what you're asking them to do, because they get that pop-up, they get that they're supposed to respond to it.
And the same pop-up comes up for the video? Like
Correct.
if a student's having trouble figuring out how to activate their video, you could send them that message and then it'll automatically offer them.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did use that when I was teaching over the summer.
You're not doing that through chat, right? You're doing that through
I
some
am
other
not,
button?
and I will show you where that is.
Okay.
So the next thing, all of that stuff lives under participants, but I want to go first with joining a meeting. So all of you have done that today successfully. You received an email with the link to this Zoom training in it, and clicking on that opened up Zoom. The way you get into your classrooms will be the same. So for the Zoom accounts that are being used for these classes, you do not need to log in to those or set up the meetings. The staff will be setting up the meeting room for each of the classes and then giving that link to the teacher and any co-teachers or assistants. So when you want to go into your classroom, you'll do exactly what you did today and just open up your class link, and Zoom will take you to your meeting. So that means that when you're inviting your students, you're using that same link. So the link that you get in your email, you'll copy paste to whatever your preferred means of communication is with your students. Some of our volunteers use emails. Some people are using just text message groups. A lot of students like to use WhatsApp. So if that's something you're comfortable with, setting up a WhatsApp group with everybody, that looks very similar to text messaging. Really anything that you feel comfortable with to get that link to them. When you do that,
Sorry.
Quick question.
We had a question in the chat about whether or not there will be a training about WhatsApp and these other messaging services. And yes, we'll be using a platform called Talking Points, which is it translates the text into the student's own language. So we'll be having a training about that, and then we'll also offer support for WhatsApp because that's such a popular one with many students.
So it's just a conversation that can happen either on the first day of class or before then when you get your students' contact info to say, how would you prefer we send this out? For the class I did over the summer, everybody said WhatsApp, so that's what we used. And when I sent them invitations to class, this is what that looked like. So this is a little screenshot of WhatsApp. It looks like a text message service, and I would just paste the link in and remind them the day and the time. So I would usually send it a few hours early and just reminder, we have class at 1 p.m. today. Here's the link to join. Some of your students will be on computers, many will be on phones. It's exactly the same. They'll still just click on the link to open up Zoom. And this is something that you'll have a chance to practice before next week. Okay. Kate, you look like you were going to say something.
Yes, we have a question in the chat that says, will we as hosts have control over things that the students don't have control over?
Yes. Right now, as the person hosting this Zoom meeting, I have control over things that you can't do. So for example, I'm going to show you some buttons a few slides in that you'll have a chance to practice with because you're going to host a practice meeting. But right now, you actually can't find and look at because you're not hosting this meeting. So that's things like being able to turn off other people's videos. I can rename other participants. I could go in and set Diane back to Vance if I wanted to. Things like that. But as you saw, Kate, a little spoiler.
Another question. Deb asks if the Zoom meetings will be recurring. And yes, they will. You will only have that one link for the whole session. Same ID, same password, same everything. Nothing's going to change. And then Kathy asked a question about WhatsApp. WhatsApp, if you aren't familiar with it, is an app that is on phones. There's also a web browser version of it that has less functionality than the phone version. But we'll get into all of that as we get closer to class time.
Yeah, it's just something that's commonly popular with students who travel frequently. So for example, my class was all students from Mexico. They go back and forth over the border a lot. So they prefer WhatsApp because it doesn't use phone data. So it doesn't matter if they're doing it like internationally or not from day to day. So it's something that's convenient for them. I saw another chat message come in.
Oh, Dave says that WhatsApp also has an iPad version.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Dave. So as you can see from my screen, we're going to take a little stretch break. You've now been on Zoom for about 30 minutes. That's a long time to be sitting still in what might not be the best of office chairs. I know as soon as I was working from home for maybe after the first month, I had to buy a new chair. My chair was terrible and it was killing me. So it's nice to kind of work in and plan for a chance to stand up, roll your shoulders, get the jitters out. And I made Kate do this last night. I'm going to ask her to do it again. She's got an ESL version of a stretch break for us.
Yeah, so we know that this is best practice in in-person class, and of course it's also best practice in Zoom class, because Zoom is kind of doubly cognitively challenging for students because they're learning the tech, they're learning the English, and it's so much harder to read the body language on Zoom than it is in person. So a lot of cognitive work for our students. So integrating opportunities to move is going to help them stay engaged and be more able to process information. So imagine that you're in a beginning class and think about things that you could practice with a stretch break. So we're all going to do it. And you might, it often forces us into awkward camera angles. So I'm going to suggest that everybody just turn off your video, and I'm going to take one for the team and leave my video on. Adjust my camera angle. And so imagine that we're in beginning class and we could practice up. Everybody stretch up. Everybody stretch right. Everybody stretch left. Everybody stretch down. Oh God, touch your toes. And if you're in an intermediate class, you can even integrate things like twist or roll or, you know, any number of fun verbs. So we just want to get up, stretch the muscles, get the blood moving, and squeeze some English in there too. Okay, have a seat.
Thanks, Kate. It definitely helps me be able to stay tuned into Zoom for an hour. Something I wish some of my university professors were doing in their Zoom classes. They were not. Great. So we're about halfway through, got a couple more things to show you. And some of that will cover some of the questions that have come up so far. So I want to talk about the participants list. In my opinion, this is your most powerful button. There's many things that you can do from the participants menu, both as a participant, so for you right now, and then some other things that you can do as a host. So what are some of those things? You can mute a student from that list of names, and you can ask them to unmute. Same thing, you can turn off their video, and you can ask them to turn it back on. You can totally remove someone from the meeting. I don't see this as being at all necessary for security reasons. We've already turned on a lot of Zoom security things in the account settings. And because we're sending out those links to you, as long as you have shared that link with only your students, there's no reason to expect anyone who shouldn't be in your class to be there. But something I found with people who aren't comfortable or familiar with the technology, sometimes I'll have students who don't know how to leave the classroom at the end of class, and maybe I want to stay and talk to my co-teacher or my assistant for a few minutes, and I'll just go into the list and move them out of it. You can rename yourself, and you can rename your students if they can't figure out how to change their name. In this list is also where you will claim the host role, so when you're coming into your own classroom to take control of Zoom. And it's also where you can make somebody else be a co-host or a host with you. So if you're team teaching, if you want to give a student the ability to share their screen for a few minutes, that's where you can do that from. So all of this lives under participants. And I'm going to start with claiming host because this will be the first thing that you do when you join your classroom every time. You'll hit that participants button that has the two silhouettes on it. And down in the right-hand corner, you'll see a button to claim host. And it'll ask you for your host key. It's a 6-digit number. It will always be the same. And we've also made them all super simple. They're numbered with how many accounts that we have. So if you happen to be teaching on account 12, your host key will be 000012. And that will be part of your startup email that has your class link in it. But you click claim host, you put in the key, and then you become the host of the meeting. And you have control of all of these things. When you click on an actual person in the participants list, this is the full menu that you have. So this is where you can click on yourself and rename yourself or rename others. And this is also a chance where we can get in a little bit of practice right away. So if you want to open up the participants list right now and find yourself and change your name to anything you'd like. Diane had the wonderful suggestion of Amelia Earhart earlier today when she was first considering a different name. But if you want to switch it to a nickname, your favorite celebrity of the moment, I'm going to go ahead and do Lizzo because I'm obsessed with her. And it's just close enough to my name that it might still be helpful. But this is something that if you happen to be joining from Arsenal fan, nice. If you happen to be joining from a different device, or if you're not logged in, because you don't actually need to be logged in, you can come in and quickly set your name to your name, which is very helpful for students. Great. And then some of the things you can do to manage students if you click on somebody else's name. So this is where you can mute them, turn videos on and off. This is where you can make someone a co-host. So like I said, if you have an assistant or a co-teacher, if you're working with a team, definitely both of you or all of you want to be co-hosts so that they can help with managing the students, keeping on top of audio stuff. But there are also times when you might want to make a student a co-host. If you have a student who's very confident and comfortable with the technology, and maybe they want to share a photo with the class, they can share their screen if you make them the co-host. And that's something that you can also then turn back off if you don't want them to keep that power the whole class time. You would come right back here and make co-host will change into remove co-host. But that can be helpful with higher level students or just students who are very techy to get more involved in class materials. I've seen the chat flashing a couple times. Is there anything I should answer now, Kate? Okay. So I want to talk a little bit more generally about some practices for audio and video and Zoom classrooms that aren't related to those buttons, but sort of cover the classroom as a whole. And this picture is a great example of some of the things to keep in mind that are unique challenges of Zoom. So what's happening in this picture is this is a work meeting for a business that had to go online. And the boss is the potato that you can see here. They somehow turned on a filter on Zoom that made them a potato, didn't know how to turn it back off, and just had to be a potato for the rest of the meeting. The guy that you can see kind of smiling here took this screenshot of the meeting and shared it online, and it went a little viral. But it's a good example of how surprising things can come up in Zoom classes. But they're all things that we can prepare for and take care of in advance. So for example, with filters like this potato filter, we've turned off filters on the class Zoom accounts. So this is not something that can happen to you. You're safe, you will not be a potato in your classrooms. But some other things to think about. One is with your video, specifically with lighting. Kate took a couple of less than ideal Zoom pictures for us. If you are set up somewhere where you have a lamp behind you or maybe an open window behind you, a really bright light behind your head really confuses your webcam. Zoom doesn't process it well, and it will make it difficult for students to be able to see your face. So if you're able to either literally move the lamp or maybe turn your laptop, anything you can do to have the light be in front of you instead of behind you is going to be really helpful for Zoom. And this is something that you can sort of think about and keep an eye on when you're doing your practice this week. Another camera thing to keep in mind is physically, where is it? You're going to see a lot of half faces in your classes on the first day while students figure out where they should be sitting. So this is pretty common if your camera is higher than you think it is. Figure out how you can move it lower. With laptops, think about how the screen is tilted. Similarly to getting half of a face because it's high, if your camera is tilted too low, there are other unfortunate views that we can have. So thinking in advance about how you're set up the best that you can so that students are seeing what they should be seeing, which is your wonderful face, smiling and greeting them as you come into class. A couple of other general things, if you have the ability to close a door to keep some of the background noise of the house out, it's really helpful. Moving a lamp if you can to get a light in front of you again. Reminding your household when classes are started. My husband has my schedule. I don't believe in my husband, so I still remind him every time I'm about to start a Zoom call, just to make sure that he's not about to come wandering in with a question or something. One thing to think about that's different for Zoom, because we're doing this teaching from our homes, is what's actually behind you on the wall, and is that something that's going to be distracting for class? To give an example, I took a picture of what used to be behind me on this wall. We had this poster. It's a Star Trek poster. And in the poster, there's actually the director. He's not even a character in the movie. Just really leaning into the camera very dramatically. And this sunglassed man in a fedora looking directly into the camera over my shoulder was distracting and also kind of creepy. So I took that poster down so that students could stay focused on me and what I was talking about during class. So this isn't at all to say that you should be rearranging your home, but looking over the back wall just to double check, is there anything that's going to pull attention that I don't want to pull attention, is a good way to prep for classes. And then, as always, don't forget that you have the power to turn your video or your sound off anytime you need to respond to something that's happening right now. And don't hesitate to do that, even though you're hosting. So that's everything I wanted to cover for this first session. Controlling your sound and your video, claiming that host role when you join the meeting, sharing the invite, so sending the link out to other people, and then what you can do from the participants list. We do have set up the opportunity for you to practice these things, and I want to show you that, and then we'll take time at the end to go through any other questions that we have.
We have a quick question
Yeah, go for it, Kate.
in the chat right now about using earphones, if most people should use earphones. I found with my students that they did not use earphones because they tended to be on their phones. I use earbuds just so that my husband doesn't have to listen to all of my meetings. I'm in the kitchen. I also found that it helps me hear more clearly, especially with students, because it's kind of with their accents and mistakes and stuff, it's kind of hard to pick up what they're saying. So earphones are definitely optional.
Yeah, I've done it with and I've done it without. It's really whatever works best for you. If you have the option, try it and see if that's something that you like, but don't feel like you have to do it or you're not doing Zoom well. So the way that your practice is going to work, you'll have some homework. We're going to send you a checklist that has the things that we talked about today for you to practice in a Zoom meeting, and then also has links to support on those things if you need it. So if you get to renaming yourself and you can't find that button again, there's a link in the checklist to see where that is if you need that support. In that same email, you'll get a link to a Zoom meeting room that's going to be your practice room. That room is not tied to a specific time and date, so you can click on that link whenever over the next week and it will open up the practice room. And you'll also get the host code to go in and claim host so that you can play with all of this stuff. You will be sharing that practice room with 1 or 2 other volunteers. And that's just good practice for the session because you'll be sharing the account that your class is on with 1 or 2 other volunteers. So something to keep in mind with your roommates on this practice room is that you should be communicating when you plan to be in the room so that you're not locking somebody else out. The link will still be open. They can jump into it while you're practicing, but only one person can claim host at a time. So if you're planning to practice, it's a good idea to send out, hey, I'm going to be on at this time. You don't have to practice all together, but it could be nice to set it up that way, convenient, because all of you understand what you need to be practicing and you can take turns being the host. But you're also welcome to send that link to family or friends to have a couple of people to practice with. So it's similar to what we're going to do with Startup in how classrooms will work, but these are not your actual classrooms, they're practice rooms. So just to show you what your link looks like, I'm going to switch to a different share window, or what the checklist looks like. I'm going to switch to a different share window just so you can see that. So you're going to get this document in an email. And down the left-hand side, it shows you what the different skills are to practice and make sure you're comfortable doing. But if you need extra support on it, there are those links off to the side that take you to an example or a video or instructions of where that is. Something that's just a little bit of extra credit. If you would like to also download the Zoom app on your phone or on a tablet, just so that you can see what it looks like from that device. Many of your students will be on phones or on tablets, so it's nice to kind of have an idea of where their buttons are because it's arranged a little bit differently. So I do also have instructions for Androids or iPhones there. So this is what you'll get in an email with a link to the practice room, your host key, and who your roommates are with emails so that you can communicate about practicing. So, can you see the PowerPoint, Kate? Did it switch over? Cool, okay. If you need help, if over the next week Zoom ever makes you feel like this, the checklist has those supports. You will also have a recording of this session that you can go back to if you want to rewatch it, skip to a moment. There are other Zoom tutorials linked, but also you can email me. I'm happy to email back and forth with you about it, or also just meet you in a Zoom room for a few minutes to help you find that again. So don't hesitate to reach out over the next week while you're practicing these things if anything isn't working for you. Okay, let's talk about questions. So I'm gonna go into the chat. Kate, is there anything we should get out of the chat first before we just open to people talking?
Yeah. Deb asked if we were using PowerPoint for this meeting. This is actually Google Slides, but we found over the summer that people really liked using PowerPoint or Google Slides in classes because they found that it really helped with a visual presentation of the information and it helped people stay organized. It is not at all required. If you aren't comfortable with PowerPoint, then by all means skip it. We will be providing support, some tutorials for how to use PowerPoint. Google Slides is an option if you don't have Microsoft Office on your computer. You only need a Google account to use Google Slides. And again, we'll be providing support on that later as we get closer to the teaching. And Alan asks, do you want us to schedule a time to practice with the other volunteers? And I'll let you take that one, Lizzie.
You can do that. I think it might be something that's convenient because then everyone in the meeting knows kind of exactly what's going on, but you're not required to do that at all. I just ask that you use that contact information to let the volunteers who are sharing your link know when you'll be practicing so that they know that it's not open for them to be the host right then. It just kind of helps with overlap. It is possible to, if I start this meeting and claim host, and then Kate wants to start a meeting in this room and be the host, she can't because I'm already the host. So giving each other a heads up is good practice for when the fall session starts. But no, you don't have to practice together. If you don't want to, it's fine.
Diane asks if most students are already familiar with Zoom. That is, some of them will be. Some of them have students who are using Zoom, have children who are using Zoom in their K-12 classes. Some of them will be continuing from this summer, and some of them will be totally new to Zoom. Lizzie created a really nice, do you want to talk about that, the Zoom guide?
Yeah, we do have some Zoom help for students. We made a really simple PDF, just document. There's one page that's how to do it on a computer and one page that's how to do it on a mobile device. That's just intended, it doesn't cover all of this information that we just did. The only thing that's covered there is how the student gets into the classroom and then telling the students where to control their video and their audio. But that's something that you'll have to be able to send to students, and we're in the process, Jennifer is right now, of getting it translated into our most common first languages. Yeah. we really found a mix of students who are super confident on Zoom, they're on it all the time talking to their families anyway, and students who have never done it before. So it's kind of a balance, but you'll have the support that you need.
asks where we can find these PDFs. They're not finished yet. We'll put them on the webpage. If you want to do some clicking around in the meantime, on the teacher resources page and pop quiz, what's the password to the teacher resources page? Put it in the chat, pop quiz.
Who knows?
Gold star to anyone who remembers. LC1, good job, Diane. Yeah, the password to the teacher resource page is always LC1. And there is now a heading there that says,
I think right now it still says English Summer Zoom, but
yeah, we'll change that. It says Summer English Zoom. And you can find the resources that we created this summer. Some of those are now obsolete, so that part of the webpage will be changing as we get closer to the fall, but it's a good place to check things out. And when these PDFs for students are finished, they will go there.
I'm actually going to take us out of the PowerPoint so that I can see you while we're having these questions. I will remind you just on this last slide that we'll be meeting again next week. You've already RSVP'd for which time, either Thursday or Friday. If for any reason you need to change that, just shoot me an email. It's not a problem at all if you need to switch to the other day. And you'll get reminders about that next week as well. But I'll come back to all of your faces.
We had a question about where the teacher resource page is. So do you mind if I share my screen, Lizzie? And
Go for it.
I'll walk through it. Okay, do you see my
Your
PowerPoint?
internet? Yeah.
So literacyconnects.org. Are you seeing my YouTube or my?
I'm seeing your web browser go.
Okay, good. And then we'll go to programs and go to Ella. And down here with current Ella teachers, go to resources. And ordinarily it will ask you for a password, but I already signed in. And so here we go with Summer English Zoom. These are lesson plans that I created over the summer that are applicable to, well, I'll just show you. They're lesson plan templates for adapting in-person activities to Zoom. So for example, if you're wondering how to do a dialogue and a role play on this new platform, this one is your best bet. So they're all about things that you're familiar with if you've been teaching with us and how to adapt them for Zoom. Day one, I'll be revising these, but these are lessons for the first day, just like we normally do where I email out the first day lesson plans. They are here on the teacher resource page.
Okay, so some more stuff has come in.
Yeah, Dave asks how many volunteers?
Great question. We're planning, the goal is to have 40 classes. How many volunteers that is varies because some people will be really confident leads on their own. We'll have co-teachers, teaming, we'll have apprentices. So the number of volunteers is a little bit more liquid, but 40 classes is the goal.
Which will allow us to serve 250 students.
Yes.
In the summer, normally in a summer, Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, we normally serve about 400 students in the summertime. And this summer, scrambling to create a Zoom program, we were able to serve 150, which we were really, really happy with. And so we're hoping to slowly build that number back up as we learn more about how to reach students and how to get them connected with the tech. So our goal for the fall is to serve 250 students. Dave asks, what feedback, sorry, Lizzie.
Sorry, there was one from Deborah about co-teachers, which was basically covered, but if that's the preferred way volunteers want to be set up, absolutely.
Dave asked about feedback from the students. We got really interesting feedback from the students. The number one thing that students wanted was longer classes or more classes. We had classes that were 1 hour in the summer, and that's why we added another 30 minutes. Now they're 90 minutes because they wanted more instructional time, but they also really, really missed the social connections that were happening before class, after class, during the breaks. Specifically, Nikki, I had your class. I had the Valencia Intermediate Library class, and I asked them, we had a discussion question about how your relationships have changed during COVID time. And several of them said, my relationships with my classmates have changed because we don't have the break time anymore. They used to bring in coffee and have cookies, and they really, really, really missed that. So we're adding in that 30 minutes to bring back in some of that social time, connection time. We were surprised by the number of students who are on computers. We had this assumption that everyone would be on phones with data plans, but it could be that the data is skewed depending on, which teachers responded to the survey, which students responded to the survey. But we were surprised by the number of computers that people were using. Other feedback was that they loved their teachers. Everyone loved everyone, which is to be expected.
Yeah. It's really a lot of excitement to be here. I had a really small class. I had the Valencia beginners, actually. And when we did the survey, there were 5 of us. And I was surprised to have more than one student say that even once the libraries are back open, they would love to have both of these things. Because we asked, if libraries open, would you want to continue on Zoom? And a number of students said, yeah. So it might be that we continue with a much smaller number of online classes even once everything's back open, which surprised me. I didn't expect many of them to go for it.
One other thing that came out of student surveys and teacher surveys was the importance of having a secondary line of communication. For my class, it was a WhatsApp group. Other teachers had a text group or had everyone's email addresses. I found certainly in my class that the WhatsApp group contributed so much to the development of community because we were all kind of texting each other at all times, and students could submit their homework that way or ask me questions that way. If there were tech glitches, somebody could say, oh, teacher, my internet crashed. Or, for example, if I was having internet problems, I could communicate that to them on WhatsApp. Forget where I was going with that. There was some other point to that. The homework, that students loved getting homework. And my theory is that it's because no one is going anywhere or doing anything. So they're like, great, something that'll kill a half hour. So we had a lot of really enthusiastic participation in homework, and students were really thankful for it. So you'll notice on the teacher resource page that I have compiled a list of pages that people used for homework. Mm-hmm. Deb asked what types, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the same thing. Deb asked what types were most popular. For me, with my beginners, something that we did several times that they seemed to like was I would ask them to send a picture to the WhatsApp that had something to do with what we were talking about. So for example, we did a lot of home vocabulary because we were all stuck in our houses anyway. So I asked my students to take a picture of their favorite room in their home and tell me what they do there. So they get to share something about themselves, give me like a couple of sentences. My bedroom is my favorite room. I read in my bedroom. For my beginners was great. And then they would kind of comment back and forth about responding to that, which I almost think was the better part than the actual homework, but them kind of replying to each other about their homework. But sending pictures with like a couple of sentences was great for beginners.
Another example from Diane Boyer is she had her students, she would give them, this was also a beginner class. So they might write a sentence about what they were doing in class. That was their homework. They would send it to Diane. Diane might correct it. Then the students would make a recording of themselves reading it, either video or audio on WhatsApp. And then Diane would send them a recording of her reading it so that they're getting the pronunciation reinforcement, but it's their sentence that they wrote. And she said she saw pronunciation just improve so much. She saw lots and lots of improvements with clarity. Sherry, you were in that class. Would you, anything to add? You're muted.
Recently, we've been doing recipes since we are getting to the end of our class and we can't do a party. So they've been writing their own recipes and then reading them to the class. And then the next one was not just the ingredients, but how do you actually make it step by step? What do you do? That's been fun.
Awesome.
In my intermediate class, I used a website that is linked on the teacher resource page called eslvideo.com. And that page takes just random YouTube videos. There's a huge variety of things on there. And teachers create listening quizzes. So that I would assign a quiz after each class, and students would take the quiz and then send me a screenshot of their scores. And I could find more difficult ones for the higher level students or easier ones for the lower level students. And they loved it. They felt like it really helped their listening skills. But we had other teachers do writing assignments. We had people do interview assignments. It's really cool, the amount of flexibility.
It definitely changed the way I think about it, because in person, I never did homework with my students. And when I tried to think about what homework would be, making that something that was like interactive and still focused on communication, I really didn't know where to go with it. But because we're in this text group together, making it about communicating with each other was really easy and really, honestly, fun. I really liked doing it. Any other questions? Teacher sessions to talk about homeworks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. I fully agree about setting those up just to meet and share, this is what we've been doing and this is what's worked and what we might change about it. Absolutely.
If you're interested, we had 2 of those sessions in the summer and we recorded them on Zoom. Those are on our YouTube channel. So I can send those links as a follow-up. Some of it might be obsolete because things are changing a little bit for the fall, but you might enjoy just hearing what teachers talked about.
Okay, one more ask. Any questions? Anything else that you thought of while we were answering these ones? Okay. So just to remind you what's coming next, you're going to get an email this afternoon, and it's going to have the link to the practice room you'll be using this next week. It'll have that checklist reminding you what skills to go through to make sure you're comfortable with that support if you need it. It'll have your roommates and their emails to let them know when you'll be practicing. And it will also link to a recording of this training session. Depending on how long it takes Zoom to process this video, I might just send you Thursday nights because it's already done. But so that you can go back if there's something that you want to rewatch and see again. So sometime over the next week before we meet again next time, get through that checklist so that you're feeling really good about where and how to do those things. But that's all. We'll out of here a little bit early. Thank you for your great questions to build on what we were talking about. I'm really happy to have been able to do this social meeting with many people today. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye,
If you
everybody.
haven't left a meeting